Let's talk about the supplies you're going to need for this project. An iron, and I really like my travel iron. You're going to need a pressing mat. You're going to need thread. Pearl cotton, size 8 is what I use, but you could also use embroidery floss. I would hold 3 to 4 strands together if you're going to use that. You're going to need a stitching needle, and it has to have an eye big enough to accommodate the thread. It should be sharp. Straight pins, a water bottle, spray starch is optional. I love spray starch. And we'll be needing 100% cotton fabric of your choice. You're going to need a pair of scissors, and you're going to need some wool. This is 100% felted wool, and what that means is it has been washed and dried, washed in hot water and dried in the dryer, which creates like a bonded edge so it doesn't fray. So you can get this, a lot of Etsy sellers have it, or you can go to the thrift store and buy something that is 100% wool, take it home. If it's a skirt, for example, you would take it apart, then you would wash it in hot water with soap and put it in the dryer until it became felted, and make sure that the edges aren't fraying. So sometimes I have found that plaids, for example, wool plaids, they tend to be a thinner fabric, and I don't know if it's because of the weaving in the wool design, but they tend to not felt as well. So just keep that in mind when you're looking for your wool. First thing you're going to do is rip it. That's the whole premise behind this idea, is that the fabric is ripped. It is not cut. We are looking for this nice little fluffy edge that you get when you rip your material. So if you're going to make a small piece, like these little coasters, then you want to rip it into smaller pieces. If you're going to be making a big lap quilt, by all means, rip it into a big piece, like, 6 inches, whatever you think. I'm going to make another 12 by 12, so my pieces are about 3 to 4 inches. And remember, you're not folding this under, and that's why you want that beautiful ripped edge. So I just put a little notch in the edge and then rip. Now all these hairs or strings, whatever you want to call it, I'm keeping them. I have a little pile over here of them. Keep them. We are going to make another project with these. I don't waste anything. I'm a huge recycler. I've been recycling since before the word recycle was popular. I'm old. Anyway, once you rip it, just clean off the outside edges, remove some of the excess strings, and just make sure you have at least 3 sides ripped, because as we layer, if you watched the last Kawandi quilt lesson, you'll see that we do a lot of layering. This cut edge could always go underneath something. So just set it aside and just do the whole pile. Keep ripping into the sizes that you need. And then take your ripped pieces. Let's get rid of this. This is what I do. As I'm ripping, I'm laying down my piece like this. And then I take it over to the iron, and if you have your ironing mat right next to you, just iron it. So I do use a little spray starch now that I finally got some. I almost forgot to tell you. So when you are, let me grab another piece. When you are ripping your fabric, so say I want to just rip this piece along here. I'm going to rip it. I'm just going to cut that little 1/2 inch and then rip it. Now, don't feel like you're wasting anything, because you're not. So I'm going to take that piece and I'm going to put it in this pile, because I've got another project for this as well. All right, I think I beat that to death. Nope, one more thing. if your fabric, every fabric rips differently, and you really, okay, back up the train. You have to stick with 100% cotton for this because if it has polyester in it, it's not going to rip right. Now, some fabrics, and I can't tell you why, some fabrics will rip like this with all these extra long hairs on it. I'm just trimming that off. But don't trim it way back to the cloth. Trim it, just trim it so that you still have some hairs. I hope you can see that. I'm so sorry this cloudy day. We're ironed. We've got our patches all ripped. Now's the fun part. We're going to start laying our patches down, and I'm right-handed, so I'm going to go from left to right. You know what's great about this project is there's like no seams to sew through. So I'm going to go all the way across, and I'm going to give myself with this one a good sturdy 1/2 inch. Sturdy? Can a 1/2 inch be sturdy? To 3/4 of an inch. And once I get, here I am, I'm right in the corner. I do want to mention that sometimes, you might like the back side of the fabric better than the front. Now, look at this piece. This has 2 ripped edges. Let's turn it over. That's ripped and that's ripped. But these are cut. So I can either stop and rip this, or I can use the cut edge underneath. Like there, right there. So if you haven't ripped everything, don't worry about it. Just do it as you go along. Now I'm going to stop and I'm going to put my pins in, and then I'm going to start my stitching. I'm ready to start stitching. I put a knot in the end of my thread. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time, go between the layers. And this time I'm going to stitch in off the corner just a little bit further. So I'm going about 1/4 of an inch in off the end. And that's because I don't have any fold under I have to worry about with this. And I am liking the frayed edge. It's a lot more organic looking. So I'm not going to step in like I did last time. I'm going to start right at the end because my triangles are different on this piece. So I'm going to make my stitches a little on the biggish side, and when I approach a pin, I'm going to pull it out or move it. It is so easy to stitch through this because it's 2 layers. It's the wool, which is like stitching in butter, as I mentioned last video. And you can do running stitches. You do want to try to stitch right at the edges of the patches so that the patches don't come up. And you're going to go all the way across. I end my thread the same way I did in the last video, but I'm going to show you again in this one in case you haven't watched the last video. So my thread's getting kind of short. I pick up one of the flaps, so I'm right here. I pick up the flap, I'm pinning it back so you can see what I'm doing, and I'm going to just tie a knot. I'm going to use my needle to bring the knot down right up against the fabric, and I'm actually going to do that twice, so I'm going to have a double knot there. And then I'm just going to tuck that piece of thread under there. So let me show you how I start a new thread. I'm just going to pick this up, this layer up, and I'm going to go back in the same hole that I ended my thread on. So I'm going to come back up. I'm sorry, I'm using a dark thread this time. Yikes. Can you see that right there? I came back up in the same hole, and now I'm going to go back down into that hole in the same spot and continue my stitching. And I'm going to flip over the back in a second. So let me just run those 2 stitches. You can't even see where I went back down with the purple thread, but on the back it looks like I just kept stitching. Now I'm going to just keep stitching all the way around. So I went all the way around and I put my pins in as per my usual way of working, and now I'm going to run my stitches 1/4 of an inch along the edge all the way around, and then I'll come back. But before I leave you, I just wanted to tell you that I do use several different colors in the same piece. I think it's a fun thing to do, and I just like the way it looks. I've stitched all the way around and I'm getting ready to do a second row of stitching, and then I'll add some more patches. With this method, I felt that it would be better if I stitched a little closer, the rows a little closer together. So I'm stitching them about 1/4 of an inch instead of the 1/2 inch that I used in the last Kawandi quilt. I'm going 1/4 of an inch. And because it's like sewing in butter, it is not a problem, and it is quite meditative, and I think you'll enjoy it. So if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. I'm going to go all the way around again, and then I'm going to add more pieces. If you find you can't pick up a flap to end your thread, I'm going to show you the way I used to end a thread when I was doing traditional quilting. You would make the knot on the top, so you would just hold the thread, twist it to make the knot, and you would bring it down. I don't know, I'm hoping you can see this. You would bring it down to within the same distance of the size of your stitch. So my stitch is about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch. So I've got the knot about 1/8 of an inch away from the top of the quilt. Then you're going to just take your pin, your needle, then you're going to just take your needle and go between the layers, the top layer and the back, and you want to just turn that over to make sure that you didn't poke through onto your, through your wool. And you're going to pull it, and then you're going to actually pop that knot through the fiber. And you do it by taking your finger and kind of pick at the knot and pull at the thread at the same time, and it pops right through the layers. And then you just trim this off. So I use both methods. While I have your attention, as you're stitching around, just every so often just lay it down flat and make sure that everything is still laying flat and nothing's buckling up on you. And one thing that I did do that I didn't share with a picture was I have this Teflon mat. Now this one happens to be orange. It's probably 100 years old. I see them in the store. They're clear or white or off-white, and it's called a Teflon pressing cloth. And I put it over this. So I took my, I got some spray starch. I took my spray starch before I started quilting. I sprayed the whole block. The pins were not in it. I sprayed the whole block. So I laid my pieces out before I started sticking the pins in. I sprayed it really good. I put this Teflon mat on top of it. And with a hot, dry iron, I pressed the whole thing. And every once in a while, you just pick it up and look under it and feel it to make sure that it's dry. When it's dry, you can take it off, put your pins in, and I just felt like that was a really good start to the quilting section of it. It just, everything was really flat. And you could do it a couple of times during the sewing process if you wanted, but you would have to remove the pins. That's the only thing. As soon as you iron it dry, then go ahead and put your pins back in. And now you can go around and do your stitching again. And hey everybody, it's good to see you. I'm in different surroundings. I'm at my daughter's house, and my son-in-law just ran out for an errand, so I thought I would quick finish this video so I can post it. Anyway, I had some tips, and I wanted to show you my finished piece. Let's start with that. So I did add some overhand stitch around, very random, done around the edges, all four sides. I used the same color thread around the whole thing, whereas on the inside of the quilt, I used various different colors. When I was finished with it, I looked down at it and I went, it looks like it's missing something. So I felt like the added stitches made it just look finished. Love it. All right. So I wanted to tell you that. I wanted to give you a few little tips, and this cute little, these coasters are so cute. Thank you so much to the lady that gave me the idea. She said she made, I think it's a she, I'm not sure. She said she made 6x6 squares. And I said, wow, that's like a coaster. Coaster. Yeah, I love them with the wool. All right. So a few little tips that I had. One of the tips was suggested by one of our subscribers. She said, when I was saying in the last Kawandi quilt video that you could stitch, over the pieces, the patches that were like really coming loose, I said the Kawandi police wouldn't come and get you, right? So she suggested doing little embroidery stitches on there, making it a little fun. I thought that was a fabulous idea. So that was that. All right. When I quilted my piece, I quilted it on a surface. So this surface is portable, so I could take it to the couch, or you could sit at the table and do it. But I wanted to share with you my love of these felted mats. They're about, I don't know, 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch thick. And I use them, you can use them for pressing. I use them for everything. Sometimes I'll just lay something out on it and I'll wander around with it. So you can get them in all kinds of different sizes and shapes. So I have a few of them. I love them. So keeping it on this flat surface and quilting, and because you quilt from the outside and you work your way toward the inside starts to get a little buckly. So when I got to it, every once in a while I just keep like patting it. And you can spray starch it and iron it as you go along too. That really was helpful as well. Of course, you'd have to remove the pins to do that. Anyway, as I got towards the center, I decided to stop and baste it. So I did baste it. It took me like, 30 seconds. And an easy way to baste is if you do it on a flat, hard surface that is not going to get scratched, you just take your needle and just till you hit the bottom and I just quick went around and basted it. It took me like 30 seconds. I think I said that already. All right. Hit it with the iron every once in a while. And I wanted to talk to you about the little, I'm going to call it a pula. I don't know how you pronounce it. The flowers on the corners. So what I did is I took a piece of pearl cotton and I did a yard. A yard is about approximately from your shoulder to the end of your hand when your hand's out. That's about a yard. If you have a small quilt, that's a perfect size. If you have a bigger quilt and you want to do a bigger meaning with more strings in it, a fluffier one, then you would probably need more than a yard. I wrapped it around my 2 fingers and then just like this and just pinched it and put a little tie around it and then just stitched it onto the corner. I thought that was so cute. And it's a Rebel Fula. I know you don't say it that way. I think it's Fula. All right. If you're a real rebel, I just wanted to say you could machine quilt this puppy. Yeah, if you really wanted to step out of the box. I loved it. I really enjoyed making it. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I hope you will give it a try. If you do, of course, as always, I would love to see it. You could always send me an email. That's down in the description box below, or tag me on Instagram or something like that. And that's it for this week. So I'll have something probably different for you next week. And I just wanted to end this video by telling you to spread the joy someplace, wherever you can, and have a wonderful day. And I will see you next week. Love you. Bye.